In the wilderness, food is not easy to find. Some of the foods that we can find out there is the stuff we're not really prepared to eat. And when you talk about rats, people always frown, they pull these faces, and you can clearly see on their face that this is not something they look forward to eating. Now, rats, unfortunately, is great survival food. And the people that have either eaten rats, if you've ever eaten one in the wilderness, will agree that it is quite palatable. It's pleasant food, it's safe food, and the best part is that you can find rats anywhere. Rats are adaptable. They will survive in environments and in areas where most other animals will probably die, and they can be found all over the world. Now, if you know how to catch rats, it's a great source of food. It could also mean the difference between life and death in situations where you have low energy levels and where you actually cannot hunt actively and where you do not have the know-how or the skills to be able to effectively set traps to give you a good chance of finding food. Making rat traps are easy, and I'm going to show you how to make a rat trap from a simple piece of bamboo. The reason why I use a piece of bamboo is because it is actually resembling a hollow tube. If I lift the bamboo up, you can see the inside is hollow. Using your imagination, you can use a piece of plastic tubing, any container that is hollow. I like to cut my bamboo so that both ends are open, so that I can easily get to the head area where the rat is located inside this trap once it's caught, so that I can easily kill it. This trap requires 3 additional pieces of wood, 1 spring mechanism wood, which can be a sapling. Bamboo is really strong and quite flexible and creates a really strong bow effect, which you'll see later in the video when I put all the pieces together. And you also need 2 little pieces of wood that is going to be carved little sticks that will act as your trigger. So I'm going to cut this piece of bamboo and then split it and get a small piece of wood nice and straight from it that I can bend like a bow to create a spring and a trap mechanism effect. Once the bamboo is cut, the edges of this bamboo can be quite sharp. I've seen some nasty cuts in the past from bamboo like this. So I take my knife and all I do is simply round the edge of the bamboo so that you create a smooth surface that is less likely to cut you when you're handling your trap. Once I've cut this small piece of bamboo, which is just a straight piece taken from one of the split halves, I can carve this down with my knife to create a nice bow that will be flexible. I have shaped this bamboo so that it tapers slightly towards the end. I've also flattened it so that I've got a nice thick piece of about 1/3 of the length of the bamboo, and this is incidentally the height of the end of your container. Then I've also left a longer piece at the top. This can be as long as you want. I normally leave this about 2/3 the length of my thicker piece, and I have shaved this down so that it's slightly thinner than the bottom, so that it gives you a nice springy effect, which is resembling a nice bow action or a trigger mechanism. Through some further carving, you can see that I've created a really nice flexible piece of bamboo that won't break easily because it's really strong, and it can bend to about 90 degrees. Now I have carved a small notch on either side to keep your string in place. Your next step will be to carve 2 slots in the top and bottom of your container at the end, so that you can slide the bottom of your spring mechanism inside so that it will hold secure and stay with the trap. It's important that you cut these slots big enough so that you can easily remove your trigger mechanism to get to your rat on the inside to remove it from the tube or kill it. I'm going to cut these slots with a folding saw, make nice deep cuts, and then you can finish them off with your knife. If you've done this right, you can simply take the end of your trigger stick and slide it into the hole. We need to now carve the other end. Now you are ready to insert the thick end of your carved spring stick through the first hole in the top and also securely into the bottom hole so that it holds secure and you have a spring effect. The next step is to make 2 holes almost at the edge in the front of your container. You can do this with the tip of your knife. Once you have created the first 2 holes, you want to create 2 more holes about 1/3 the way in from the front of your container. Once you have created these 4 holes in the front, you will need to create 1 hole slightly bigger than the 4 small holes in the front. That is about 1/3 from the back of the container, right in the middle on top of your container. Now that you have your spring mechanism in place, you have carved your large hole in the back and your 4 small holes at the front. All that is left to do now is to carve 2 small sticks to complete the parts you need for your trap. Now you need to cut a stick that is slightly longer than the distance between the front holes and the large back hole of your trap. This stick will need one end that is flattened to a point, and you create a string notch at the bottom end. In the middle of your long stick, create another notch to allow a string to be attached to the middle of the stick. For the large hole in the back, you need a stick that can easily fit into that hole. You'll need to cut it roughly 5 centimeters long, and then you're going to sharpen the one end, make a notch in the top for your string to attach to the top of this stick, and we're going to make a small little catchment notch that will fit into the bottom of that hole and catch when you pull it upwards. It will all make sense in a minute. Now that you've sharpened the one end of your stick, made a notch at the top to allow a string to be attached, you can simply make a small little flat and then 45-degree angled little notch, which I'll show you in this next step. What you need is a small flat piece that sits towards the tip of your stick, and a 45-degree angle comes in from the top, so that when you use a piece of wood, it will stick to the piece of wood. Once you have cut your first catchment notch, you're going to reverse this notch and do the same just below the top notch area that you've created for your string in this little stick, so your flattened bit will be closer to the top and your angle will come in from the bottom. And this is your finished trigger stick. You will now need the inside strings of a piece of paracord, as these are strong enough and thin enough to go through the small holes at the front of your trap. Pass the string through the front hole of your trap from either side to create a small loop. You're going to tie the knot on the inside of your container between the two holes. And cut off the loose ends. Next step is to take a piece of cord, tie it to the middle of your long stick and secure it firmly with a good knot. Again, cut off the loose end. The next step is to bend your flexible spring loaded support at the back to 45 degrees and then measure the length of string you need to allow the long string to sit just above your container. Tie the string at the top. Your next step is to pass a piece of string again through the two holes, a third from the front of your container, from both ends. So thread it through, and then from underneath pass the string through the hole to come out the top. This is a little bit tricky, so you can use a stick to guide the end of the rope from the bottom through the hole. Once you've got the string inside the hole, inside the container from both sides at the top, you should just make sure that the cordage can line the entire area of the container so that it touches all the sides on the inside. Animal will go in, and once the rope is pulled from the top, it will close off the string and catch the animal. Once the string is lining the inside of the container on the inside, you make a knot at the top to lock that in place, and then tie that knot to the top of your, in the middle of your trigger stick when it's pulled down. And this is the finished trap already set. So you'll see that the top of the string is attached to the spring mechanism. This is bent at 90 degrees, putting pressure on this little stick, and this wants to pull up. The string's front with a little notch is attached to the front string that we pass through the two front holes. The long string that's sitting on the inside of your container ready to catch your animal is attached to the middle of the top string, and your little trigger stick is pushed in with a sharp point to the bottom. The first notch attaches and latches itself to the bottom of your container at the inside there, and your little sharpened flat bit is sitting on this little notch, keeping it in place and preventing the stick from lifting up. On the inside you will see the sharpened notch sitting in the top of the container there, that sharpened stick. So if you put some bait on that stick or entice an animal to at least move through the container and through your rope, what will happen is they will pass through the rope and dislodge the little stick, and what will happen is the animal will be safely caught to the top of your container, and he can't go anywhere. If you struggle to get the string to sit all the way around the inside of your container, you can take small pieces of mud and you can attach the string and stick it to the inside of your container.